Lots of news today. We'll be breaking down BUIDL and also take a look at where BlackRock and USDC are starting to align forces, how all this plays into Ethereum, and also maybe some top news here on what's happening over at Uniswap. We'll break it all down for you. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into Tech Path. All right, let's get going. And I do want to thank our sponsor, and that's iTrust Capital. If you guys are looking at long-term holding for your crypto, you only have a few more days before you no longer have the 2023 tax advantage, which can still happen until the 15th. So if you're watching our live stream right now and you haven't got out there and got that done, that's one of the big benefits you can do before filing your taxes on the 15th for the deadline. But anyway, check it out. It's going to be a great place to do everything from ETH, Bitcoin, all sorts of assets, all within a self-directed crypto IRA. Use our link, get a $100 funding reward if you decide to go there. All right, so let's get into a couple of news points today, and I want to get to this first one. Circle announces the USDC smart contract for transfers by BlackRock's BUIDL fund investors, and I'll zoom in on this a little bit. Smart contract provides BUIDL investors nearly instant 24/7 BUIDL off-ramp that brings and to bear the core benefits of tokenized assets, speed, transparency, and efficiency. This is a pretty big deal. It is going to, I think, enable a lot more awareness. This, of course, is Jeremy Allaire announcing this. Tokenization assets is but one important dimension to solving the investor pain points. And I agree this is where the growth of Wall Street is going to be, is in tokenized assets. So they are, being USDC, are enabling investors to move out of tokenized assets at speed, lowering costs and removing friction, and being able to do this 24/7, 365. That's a big advantage that has not been seen in the TradFi market before. So huge step forward. This was an interesting tweet here from Ryan Adams over from Bankless. Stablecoins now will happen in the US because BlackRock and the banks want them to happen. And this could not be more obvious. The BUIDL fund on Ethereum is a high bandwidth pipeline between US Treasuries and USDC. There you go. Pipelines will bring trillions on chain. USDC issuer Circle likely will IPO. I agree with that. BlackRock has ownership in Circle. You start to see how it all plays together. The banks will backdoor themselves into stablecoin by acquiring, partnering, and controlling crypto native companies. That's going to be interesting to watch. There could be some setups here that are pushing companies into that, maybe even things on decentralized exchanges, all playing into this. US does not have the political will to build a central bank digital currency. That's the question I'm still questioning in the sense of what we're seeing coming out of Senator Warren's mouth, which is really pushing hard. Now, there could be a lot of alternative motives, other agendas, which is definitely for sure. But as long as we preserve open, permissionless, decentralized protocols like ETH at the bottom of the stack, then crypto wins. But we still have to face the scenario that we are doing right now in terms of ETH, especially being looked at as a security. Make sure and drop some questions in over on the sidebar. We'll try to get to as many of those as we can. We'll have a poll up for you guys today. And we'll see how that plays out, because it's going to be some interesting things, I think, for not only the future of where stablecoins are going, but really this is kind of this adoption curve that we're going to see in a lot of major investors out there for sure. If you look at tokenized securities, this is kind of interesting. I'll zoom in on this a little bit. Tokenized securities, 1.1 billion right now. You can kind of see this big bump right here. Of course, the gold one right there, number 2, and only a handful of weeks old, is setting at number 2 at 1.1 billion, but that, of course, being BUIDL right there. And if you look at some of the things we've covered in previous videos, this was a video that we did. When was this one? This was 8 days ago. And you can kind of see it was at 1 billion right there. BUIDL just barely starting to break out. And then you go to something, I think this one was 3 weeks ago, and it was at 733. That's right, 733 million. And BUIDL wasn't even on the chart at that time. So you can see the growth is happening quickly, and it's very, very early. It's just a matter of time before we really start to see all of this break loose. This is a clip I wanted to go into because BUIDL and USDC as a move and why it's so powerful. Listen in.
This feels like almost like a liquidity portal from TradFi to crypto. That's like directly on chain, right? So we can go from securities, and the biggest security of them all, which are these like treasuries thing, and the biggest asset holder of them all, which is freaking BlackRock with like a lot more. And we can get that into directly redeem into stablecoins, into USDC. That is very fascinating because that would be a direct on-chain like bank branch that BlackRock has.
No, that's exactly right. There's like, it's just less reasons to remove your wealth from being on chain to off chain if you can simply like liquidate your BUIDL treasury to like USDC or like a stable coin. Like, it doesn't sound like USDC is particularly enshrined here, but just like if you can go from BUIDL to USDC, like that is a USDC sized foot in the door for people keeping their wealth on chain, rather than like getting a wire back to your bank account and having your bank account custody your BUIDL fund. Now you can have your Ethereum wallet custody your BUIDL fund. And then when you're done with the BUIDL fund, you can go to USDC and you can buy your meme coins straight on Uniswap.
I quote Jeremy Allaire. He always says that one of the reasons why blockchain is so powerful as a new, capital markets infrastructure, if you want, is because for the first time in history, you have on the same ledger with the same underlying technology, you can represent securities and cash alongside.
So interesting. We played this interview partially before, and of course that's Carlos over at Securitize, the partner of BlackRock for securitizing, on-chain assets or off-chain assets, real-world assets. Now going into what we've seen here with, of course, BlackRock and the USDC potential here. So very intriguing, because there's some other things that Ryan was mentioning in that video, was this whole connection into being able to convert out. You get into a DEX, now you move into Uniswap, and pretty much it does give, I think, the framework of anybody that's, I would say, a Gen Z or below, maybe just becomes an on-chain bank now, especially with BlackRock kind of moving into this space. It's just a matter of time before we see this. Remember, this is only a few weeks old, so lots happening. Other in the news issues right now, of course, is Uniswap received a Wells notice from the SEC. We talked about this. Not surprised, just annoyed. This, of course, is Hayden Adams over there. And just annoyed and ready to fight. I'm confident that the products we offer are legal and that our work on the right side of history. But this is a typical scenario that does play out from the SEC in terms of overreach. And I think that's going to be the issue that Uniswap will face. Uniswap has had some pretty big hits, of course, on this. But this could be a pretty much a landmark statement, maybe even more so for the case of what Coinbase is going through after the recent win on Coinbase, what we are seeing in terms of, aftermarket securities. So that's a big deal. And then, of course, you got Brian Armstrong right here. I stand with crypto. This is the big one. If you guys are not, let me kind of zoom in on that. If you guys are not thinking about how you're going to vote, you should consider that, because this is something that I think is playing into the future of where not only assets are going to be dealing with in the future in terms of investment, but also just in general, how we're going to do everything within blockchain. All of this year, I think, is one of the most important times to really understand your candidates. So make sure and check that out. Speaking of Uniswap right here, Uniswap, of course, after yesterday, big dip right there as it's now trending down under $9. So very interesting. Almost back down here when we saw the last Uniswap news at about $7.50, and it really had not much return. So I don't know, are you guys going to be buying the dip here on Uniswap with this bad news? Because will they recorrect? My anticipation is that they will. The product's just too good. There's too many projects out there that, of course, lean on Uniswap as a platform. Other things that are hitting, of course, will the SEC be sued if the Ethereum ETFs are rejected? This is a view that many people are still kind of on the fence with. And it's back and forth on whether or not the ETH ETF will actually make it. This was Balshunas from Bloomberg talking about Grayscale will not likely pursue litigation if ETH ETFs are rejected in May. And then you had other analysts talking about, I would question this as Ether futures. Only ETFs have 4% of the assets that Bitcoin futures have. So people might be looking at the demand, compared to what has been the case over here. It's a lot of time and money for something that may only get a very fraction of the AUM. This is the challenge that I think a lot of people still maybe do not understand, is that maybe the traditional finance markets aren't ready for ETH just yet. The early adopters definitely are. And many times I think we're in that bubble where they just don't see the bigger picture of even where ETH is going to be going. So a lot happening here. Van Eck, of course, talked about this compared to the spot Bitcoin ETF approval process to its ETH ETF filing, and stated that right now pins are dropping as far as Ethereum is concerned. So maybe not a lot of potential there going forward. A couple other things here is the Fed's next move is going to be a big one. There's different opinions on this. You got Jamie Dimon, who's over here saying, hey, we're prepared for a very broad range of interest rates, meaning a 2 to 8. That's a big range going up. This is Larry Summers now saying, hey, you have to take seriously the possibility that the next rate move will be an upwards move rather than downwards. And then Michelle Bowman, as the Fed governor, I continue to see the risk that at a future meeting we may need to increase the policy rate further should progress on inflation stall or reverse. So that's a big deal. Serious possibility that we could see a bump. I'm still questioning that, and there are a few analysts out there that are still pushing for 2 rate cuts. This is Charles Bilello. He's hitting on, we know what happened in May and June. Pause. July would be potentially his estimation is a pause. Possibly September being the first, 25 bips right there, cutting down to 5. And then, of course, we would see a pause maybe in November and December, maybe getting a cut from 5 to 4.75. So this is 2 dissenting opinions. Love to get your idea, because this could have a little bit of a bearing of how this plays out. Remember, timing, very interesting here, not only on election, but also the cycle for this crypto bull run. All of this playing into what's happening with these Fed rates. If you look at the history of this, historically the Fed started cutting rates. What happens to the markets after? And this is all going all the way back to the 50s. So if you can kind of see what happened right here. And on average, 3 months after, about 10% market correction upwards, 6 months, about 12% upwards, 14 in 9 and about 12 months, best market at about 15 on average. If you look at all the rates going back to 67, then flowing through to even 1998. So this will be a good one to keep an eye on right now. The Fed is definitely going to be in control going forward. Bitcoin price gains despite a pullback in global markets as the ECB holds rates steady. So this, of course, is the European Central Bank holding a pause right now. And they look at it in the way that I think a lot of people, and that is that it's not really tied to what's happening here in the U.S., but Bitcoin typically tracks closely with risk-on assets like major equities, which we've seen for quite some time. And if you see those trajectories moving one way or the other, typically Bitcoin kind of moves with it, though I've seen less and less of that over the last little bit. Bitcoin, of course, trading right now in the 70K range. Eurozone's key interest rate remained unchanged at 4%. That, to me, is still a positive and bullish move, because remember, we have a lot of people trading crypto in the EU. There's Lagarde talking about this, that we're not a Fed dependent. Can't assume Eurozone inflation will mirror the U.S. inflation. So still pretty safe, I think, overall. Bitcoin demand is on the rise also on the back of unsustainable deficit. And I think this is something everybody knows, is that as we continue to drive the deficit up, we drive the dollar down, the alternative asset is going to be digital. And that's either going to start with Bitcoin, Ethereum, or other digital assets that you might hold, because it definitely outperforms that of what we are seeing in the inflation cycle within all of this. Here's a tweet right here from Eric, just to show you how doubled down BlackRock is. This is the ad on the Bloomberg homepage. Times Square size ad on iBid. This is crazy. Clearly trying to strike while the iron is hot, which is a big one. ETF Marketing 101. This is normal stuff that we'll continue to see. When those ads stop appearing, that's when you might be concerned about the liquidity and also the inflows over at these ETFs. I want to play a couple of clips here, because this will get into what the future really is around not only what's happening within tokenized assets, but the potential here of blockchain. Listen in.
Macro summer, crypto summer. We're at the phase where the Bitcoin halving is happening, the election cycle where they give out free candy to the kids, stimulus. And we generally get, well, we've got the central bank who want to cut rates, even though inflation's not playing that game. We'll talk a bit about that in a sec. The Federal Reserve want to cut rates. The Everything Code basically suggests that they have to use liquidity to monetize the interest payments on the debt. We're coming into the teeth of the interest payments now, and we're paying for the interest for the debt we issued during the pandemic. So we got a lot of payments to do. The bond market's freaking out from this, obviously. Plenty of games to be played for liquidity. It's just at the right time. You don't want to upset the voters who want the markets to go up. And that is a very powerful backdrop. This macro crypto summer is the powerful backdrop for assets because you're debasing currency. Assets go up. The assets that have network effects, technology and crypto, go up the most.
So Raul's he's definitely an all-in on the future of blockchain and really kind of this everything bubble that he references. And I don't know that I completely agree. I think it's going to take some time, yes, but we're definitely going to get there. I think it's just a matter of time before we see this. And the footprints are in the sand for sure, with everything that's happening with BlackRock, tokenized securities, etc. It all leans in this direction. This last clip gets into that very point, is the everything bubble. Listen in.
As you know, I've been involved in crypto since 2012. But I really started to realize that if I divide S&P by crypto, it's down 99.98%. If I divide gold by Bitcoin, down 99.99%. Bitcoin, even with 80% drawdowns-ish, 75, whatever the average is, still has done about 140% a year returns. Let me just repeat that. Annualized return of Bitcoin is 140% a year since 2012. You can own any VC fund. You can have any other asset class. Nothing comes fucking close. Well, ETH is about 160 something percent, 165% returns annualized. Been around less. Solana, 200% returns annualized because it's been around less early on the network effect. I don't know if you can get your heads around this. And if you're not a crypto investor, I simply don't understand why, when you've got the best performing asset class of all time, the fastest adoption of any technology in all time outside of AI, the largest generation of and fastest generation of wealth.
All right, so a lot happening there. Big shift in wealth. I think everybody knows that watching our channel. I want to go over to the poll. Take a look at what you guys think. Maybe we're going to cut to. All right, there you go. Are you worried about the effects of the SEC targeting Uniswap? Everybody kind of know. I like the attitude here, man. That's the irreverent attitude, because everybody's going, hey, we've seen this before. It's overreach, the typical scenario that, of course, Gensler and his gang are out there playing into. So definitely on the loose. All right, let's get to some questions. Let's see here. Mananomission. Wilder World. Yes. Epic Games, Samsung, very big. For sure, Wilder World, big one of the projects we really like. So definitely one on top. XRP ETF, don't think so. Fred Williams, the SEC are digging their own grave. Yes, that's a big problem right now. I think this overreach is probably going to cause Gensler to have to step down, most likely, when he does. All right, Heaven says, Paul, you got to day trade these Soul memes. If you ever have any time for profits are insane. This guy, wow, 189 Soul in a few days. Good for you. Nice moves. We are day trading. I won't say day trading, but we're definitely moving in and out of a lot of meme coins, both on Soul and on Base. So definitely. SEC is playing its best spread FUD. I like that. But especially this kind of attack always ends up on blockchain, proving its independence. Just keep building. I agree with you, my friend Barris. Coming in, Hoyman says Ripple launched another stablecoin backed by gold to go with the one they announced backed by USD. Did that happen? I don't know if that was a headline. I hadn't seen that. And then, of course, New Type says we seriously need a custom new government branch that can, that's something that I've said for a while. And I even asked the Digital Assets Association a couple of times, what would it look like if we just, created a new CFTC/SEC that people actually knew what this was and could regulate it accordingly? That I think is still yet to be done. Alex says, Gary and Co. are 0 of 4 attempts on trying to win. So he is right. 0 and 4, they would say that's a bad batting average or a bad losing streak. So maybe they need to go home and realize that the blockchain is on the wall. So we'll see. All right, you guys, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, I ask that you do that right now. If you stay this long, you should be subscribed to the channel. And make sure and hit the like on your way out. We always love to have that. And make sure and catch me out there on X. It's just @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.